All right, we're going. Excited to have Initial Ascent on the podcast today for our pack series. I've got Joe and Dennis on, the owners of Initial Ascent, and just glad to talk to them. How you guys doing?
Good. How are
Yeah.
you? Thanks so much for having us on.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I'm doing great, man. It's I'm itching right now. I mean, it's like almost June. I'm itching for hunts, and it's I just booked one for August to go hunt some axis deer in Hawaii, so that's going to be fun. I'm
Awesome.
just trying to find a way to go shoot something. You get a little stir crazy outside of
Yeah,
hunting
they,
season.
they say on that hunt that there's lots of shot opportunities.
Yeah, we're gonna be there for 5 days, 3 hunting days. I have a feeling we'll be done the first day, and then we're gonna go do the whole like knife a pig thing, which is kind of
Oh
cool.
wow.
That will be.
Yeah.
So like
Bring
the pit
plenty of
bulls or
arrows.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
jump on the back and stab one with a knife. So I mean that's pretty barbaric. So that'll be kind of cool to do that too. So it'll be an experience. But yeah, I'm not worried about shooting a deer. I think we're gonna kill some deer. So that'll be fun. So yeah, I'm excited to get over there.
Heck yeah.
So, yeah, this is the pack series, and I feel like you guys have really been making some waves in the industry, and you guys are making some really awesome gear and really awesome packs that a lot of guys, like big name dudes, are running and using. Um, and the cool thing about packs is nobody runs a pack just because they're getting paid. Like a pack is probably the most important piece of gear you're going to carry. You're going to use it a heck of a lot more than your rifle or your anything, your sleep system. You're gonna have a pack on. So these guys running it aren't running it just because they're running it because it's really good. And you guys really are switching. A lot of dudes are switching to Initial Ascent, which is very impressive. So congrats on that.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate it a bunch.
So how long have you guys been making packs? Let's kind of get into the origins of Initial Ascent because, like, honestly, I didn't really know about you guys till probably the last couple of years, and I feel like you guys are just kind of blown up. Give me the origin story.
Yeah, I mean, so we actually launched the company at the Western Hunt Expo in 2018. So February of 2018 is when we came on the market. And I would say we walked into the expo and we had not done any kind of promoting of it whatsoever. Matter of fact, we did quite the opposite. We were pretty quiet about it. And so we launched it 2018, but we actually started the company in 2015. And we spent about 3.5 years designing just the frame. We knew we had to get the foundation right. Dennis and I, Dennis has some lower back issues, and there were some things specific that we just felt like didn't exist in the marketplace from a suspension perspective. And so we spent about 3.5 years working with a couple different engineering firms, doing a lot of trial, a lot of testing. But we launched it in 2018 at the expo.
Really? 3 years. Now, what's your guys' backgrounds? Are you guys engineers yourself, or are you just a bunch of hunters that wanted to make a good backpack?
Yeah, the latter. Yeah, we just yeah, between the two of us, we kind of owned most all the packs, and I know for me specifically, it was just trying to find that one that I could carry weight comfortably with the issues that I had with my back, and I really had a hard time. And there's some great pack companies out there, and they're building some great stuff, but for me personally, I just couldn't find that secret sauce, and so you know kind of to make a long story short, Joe and I decided we would stop complaining about other packs and we would just see what we could do ourselves. And the worst case scenario would be we would have a couple of packs that really fit us well, and it ended up that other folks kind of liked what we did, so it worked.
So, are you guys like, do you have a background in like sewing at all, or any kind of like manufacturing, or how did this work? Like,
Yeah, it's funny, man. If I showed you the very first picture, you've got the blind leading the blind in the garage, just literally making different shapes with rope and trying to come up. No, we are not engineers, but we had a passion that we felt like we could make something better. And it was literally Dennis and I white sheeting it with three different engineering firms
Mhm.
and just saying, hey, we don't know what we want as far as the material, but here's what we know we want it to accomplish. And so we just started going through material after material, trying different things, white sheeting it from top to bottom, and ultimately landed with a carbon fiber composite, because there's multiple materials within our frame. And there was a lot of support from engineers, but then we partnered up with a company that's who we work with today that really took us to that next level in the frame development. And I
Okay.
want to say we had 14 generations of frame prototypes before we ever launched it.
Yeah.
Man.
And we've both, I mean, Joe, he is a really good like builder. I mean, he does precise measurements. When we're putting stuff in this showroom here, you want somebody to cut something straight, is Joe. So he's really good with tools and thinking about stuff like that. I tinker, and I've always tinkered with my gear, just trying to make it better for me, and trying different packs and doing different things with different packs. We don't have a formal, I guess, engineering type background, but we both have the minds that form that type of background, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. So I have boxes and boxes and boxes of prototypes here, right? And like my first tripod, I welded together myself and made it, and it worked. I was like, okay, it works. And it's a monstrosity. And I always joke around that I'm a redneck engineer, right? And I can tell you when it comes to entrepreneurship, like like there are certain people who need to go to college and get an engineering degree and be an employee and be incredible engineers. There's other people who have a mind that I could never do that. But I could think of a hell of a lot more products than that guy who has that degree because my mind's built that way, right? So you don't have to technically be an engineer. And honestly, with some of those degrees, you get so pigeonholed into that specific thing, you can't think, right? And
Absolutely.
you don't have to be an engineer to do that stuff, right? Like God created you a certain way, and you're able to think outside that box, and you're able to see these different backpacks and know what works for you, right? And that's the thing that happens with Tricer is I make stuff. And like, how do you think of this stuff? I'm like, well, I'm just making stuff that I like that no one else is making that I think we need to use, right? Or innovating things, right? Like there's already there's 6 backpack companies on this podcast, right? This series, you're the 6th one. There's 5 other guys that make really good packs,
Yep.
but you found a way to make a better mousetrap in certain aspects. I'm not saying your packs are better than everybody else's. This is again Switzerland on this podcast, but you guys went at it and said, well, you know what, that those packs might be great for that guy, but I can make a pack that might be good for other guys.
Yeah. That's so true, man. And and I think another thing that we all as entrepreneurs have to have is we got to have that drive to never quit. And
Yep.
you talk about the mini prototypes. We've got tons of prototypes that we were going through just the other day in here, and it's laughable what some of them look like. And like you were saying, that first tripod that you welded up, it was a monstrosity, but it worked. And that's the same thing with our prototypes in here. There's some monstrosities in there for sure, and there's some bad ideas in there too. But it's just continuing to pursue, that vision that you have and never quitting. And it's all hours, lots of late nights, lots of early mornings, thinking of this while you're doing your day job, all of that good stuff.
Yeah. And I think too, I'm sure you're the same way, Drew. As soon as you finish it, like, okay, this is it, I'm launching it. You're already
another
like,
one.
yeah, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do this. It's just like,
dude,
you're never satisfied. Right. And that's a blessing.
Never. It's a blessing and a curse. On the never quit thing, I say that all the time. People are like, well, how do you be so successful in business? Because I've started multiple businesses, and it's just like, I'm too dumb to quit. Like when it comes to hunting, I am not Ryan Lampers. Ryan is 10 times better than me. Right. But I still find a way to get it done, not based on skill, but based on I'm too dumb to quit. And I know if I stay out there hard enough and keep working hard enough, eventually, blind squirrel finds a nut and I'm going to kill something. Right.
Yep.
And the same goes for business, man. Like you have to be willing just to make mistakes. I lost so much money with Tricer. We made so many mistakes. I made products that nobody wanted to buy, right? laughable products now that we tried to sell, but everything. I love what you said about like the next. You ready for the next one? I mean, we're probably launching 15 new products this year, and I've got another 15 in the works already because things build. When you do one pack, it's like, oh man, I could change that. I could do this, and you continue to evolve. And like even my tripods, I could stop. I tell people all the time, I could have stopped making my pan heads and tripods today, and people would buy them the rest of my life. Be great, retire. But I can make them better. And I can, you know what I mean? And that's what innovation is. And I mean, you look at Apple, right? I think Apple's a great example of this is like, they're continually improving. You know, they have the Apple 14. Now they got the 15 and the 16 is coming out this year. They're continually improving it, even though it's small improvements. Over the decade or whatever, 15 years we've been having iPhones, they've gotten way better, right? And if we continue as an industry to push each other, and if Initial Ascent continues to do certain things and EXO does certain things and some Glacier does certain things, it's going to push the industry forward and grow the industry. And that's what I love to see. I love to see. I'm yet to have one of you guys on here and be like, those guys suck. Like, I think everyone has a lot of respect for each other, and everyone is trying to. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, we're trying to get customers and take customers. But if it wasn't for competitors and people doing what you're doing and continually evolving, you'd be stuck with the same freaking, sorry, Badlands. Badlands backpack from 2008. We were all running. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and I think too, Drew. On top of that, you think about just the evolution of the materials that go into the products today, right?
Yeah.
When we launched ours in 2018, had we launched it 2 years prior, the resin we use did not exist in the States. And, it was one of those things where those kinds of things allow you to continue to leapfrog new developments as new materials come on the market. So we're constantly looking and testing new materials as well, in addition to functionality, changing how it functions, but also looking at that. So it's exciting, man. It's an exciting time.
That's cool. Yeah, and I do feel like we're at like the peak of the hunting industry when it comes to like technology and gear, and everyone's just pushing forward, and it's really cool to see. So now you got me intrigued. You're talking about all these composites and special materials, everything you guys got going on over there. Let's talk about the pack. Let's talk about. I guess we'll start with the frame because that's you put 3 years in the frame. That to me is like makes me want to try your frame. Like, Dan, you guys put that much time into it. You didn't just go make one and put it out there. You guys put 3 years into getting it right. In the garage, I assume, working day jobs, I assume, right?
Yep.
I mean, I just went full-time Tricer 2 weeks ago.
I know, man.
I was doing
Awesome.
16-hour days up until then. So now I'm doing 16-hour days, but I love it. So it's a different 16-hour day, right? So let's talk about that. We probably should start with the frame because the frame is probably what sets you apart, right? Is kind of what that's the foundation. So let's talk about that.
Yep, that's our foundation. Yeah, it took us about 3 years to get that to where we wanted it and to get it put out to the market. And it's a whole conglomeration of things. I mean, it's not just carbon fiber. We've got composite material in there. It's one of those things that it's very, very, vertically rigid. But it does flex some with you, but it makes you feel like it's a part of you. It doesn't allow that load to overtake you, which, on lots of the ones out there, sometimes that's the feeling that you get sometimes. But with ours, that's the one thing that I feel, especially with the back injury that I've got, I feel like I'm secure in it, if that makes sense. I feel like that load is a part of me. Where I go, the load's going to go and not the other way around. But working with those engineering firms, and as Joe talked about, we had big sheets of cardboard out, and we were taking that. I know one time I was doing coat hangers, bending coat hangers all around, trying to figure out. We'd go to the hardware stores and we'd had yarn and all kinds of, rope and everything, trying to figure out a shape that would work, because we knew that if we didn't get this foundation right, the pack, I mean, everybody can make a pack that has pockets in certain places and hip belts and shoulder straps. But if we didn't get the frame right, we really didn't have anything. And so, creating that, and it was funny. We had our engineer that actually builds the frames over in the other part of the state. He came in a couple of weeks ago to the shop, and we were able to lay out pretty much every frame, a representative from every frame that we built and that he helped us build. And it was fun sitting there talking about the evolution and how we got from this frame to that frame and this material to that frame to that material. That was a really fun conversation, but it just shows you all the time and effort that it took. We had to get angles just right on curvatures. And one of the things that we base our frame on, our bags on, is the fact that it's a little wider at the top than it is at the bottom. And that's basically, pushing that heavy weight up and, in the middle of your back, as close to your back as possible. We wanted to try to increase surface area, if you will.
You're saying that it's almost like an hourglass shape, not hourglass, like a V shape going down to your hip from the back?
Yeah, if you look at our frame, it's a little bit wider at the top. It comes in, on that second rung, and it comes in just a touch further on the third rung, and then it comes down into the hip belt. Where it comes down to the hip belt, it's about 5-6 inches wide. So you've got a lot of surface area down there that contacts that hip belt, that all those pounds of weight are kind of going through, and we feel like that is one thing that kind of helps support that load, that heavy load.
Yeah, I mean, our goal was to really, and Dennis just said it right there. Our goal, when it was all said and done, was we want to be able to carry heavy loads more comfortably. That if you just put it all down on paper, what did it boil down to? It was, let's carry heavy loads more comfortably.
That's it.
And because, to your point, I mean, we had tried so many different packs, and yeah, they were good, but that was the area we just really felt like was missing, right? Every pack feels great at 30, 40, 50 pounds, but when you throw on 80, 90, 100, some cases 120 plus pounds, that's when you really break down, right? And as we're not getting any younger, we're getting older, it's harder to recover. So if we could build a pack system that allows you to recover faster because you don't break down as much, then you can go out day 2, day 3, day 4. Maybe you've already harvested your animal, but now you're helping your hunting buddy, right? You're packing more meat. So those were all things that we were trying to strive and do. But it's funny, Drew, when we started, back to your earlier question, we didn't know what the right material was. We didn't know what the finished product was going to be, but we knew where we wanted to go. So it just took a lot of trials. And to Dennis's point, our very first working prototype was the 5th generation, I believe, 5th or 6th. And that's what we ended up taking to New Zealand and testing out. And when we came back from that trip, that's when we're like, okay, we feel like we've got something here. But think we are at generation 5. We launched at generation 14.
Really? Man, few things on that. My pastor always says, if it wasn't for illusion, nothing would get done. Because with the illusion, right, you have the illusion like, I'm going to create the greatest backpack ever. And you never start out like going, it's going to be 14 packs later. You never think that. But you get so far, it's almost like you get to the point of no return. And then the illusion, like you're stuck. You got to finish, right? So that's cool. And I love you guys are saying like I got some wire and I went down to the hardware store. Like, I like to hear about companies that are actually doing hands-on stuff like that. Cause like some nerd at a computer can't tell me how sometimes you just got to feel it. You just got to use it, right? It can look great on paper, but once you use it and feel it, that's a whole other thing. And then on the prototype thing, man, talk about having a bunch of them. People don't realize is too, like I've got I've got a new product called the Tricer DZ. I can't say what it is, but I've sent 8 of them out to people to use. They have no idea that's like each one of them is like $2,000, right? Like my Tricer JC tripod over here is a $20,000 prototype, right? Like you're putting so much time and money into it, and then when it doesn't work, you're just like, oh, one more, and
One more closer.
one more. We're getting somewhere, and then you get done with it, like you said, and you're like, oh, I'm ready for Gen 15 because I can make it better now. Because you
Yep.
can, as much as you try and figure everything out, you never can. Like there's always something, especially you get a couple hundred of them out there. Some guys are gonna call you and be like, "What about this?" And you're like, "How did we miss that?"
Yeah.
And you start
Yeah.
making those changes. And I think that's the mark of a great company is being willing to make those changes, being willing to throw away prototypes, and to be humble and make changes. That's really how you can grow something into something really big.
Yeah.
Well, there's so much truth to that, Drew, because Dennis and I are two people. We've got thousands of packs out there, and the feedback we get, we file it, right? We keep track of it, knowing that, okay, there are things that we need to do. And that was really relevant when we launched our new bag design here at the Expo this year, right? A lot of that feedback came from our customers saying, hey, maybe if you do this, maybe you do that. And I agree with you 100% because there's a lot of companies out there that we've all dealt with that really they don't want to hear your feedback. Well, we do, right? Because we know that's where we're going to get the best product from.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, I'm not knocking other companies. Sometimes you get to a certain point where you're so big that it's hard to get the feedback to somebody who cares.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
Well, I can guarantee you right now that if some yahoo, doesn't even matter if it's Joe Blow from Colorado, puts a YouTube review video out talking crap about your stuff, it's going to hurt you too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You guys are going to be not hurt you. Like it's going to make you guys upset. Like, dang it. Why would you say that? You know what I mean? And sometimes you get so big that you just don't care anymore. Like I know for me, like I tell my team all the time, like we put a postcard in every package, and we're gonna do that for as long as we're in business. We're gonna do that. You don't care how big we're doing. I mean, it's Memorial Day sale right now, and they're gonna be writing hundreds and hundreds of cards this weekend. But you know what? I don't want to lose that. I want to have that connection to them, right? And I want to whenever I tell my customer service team because now I can't handle all of them anymore. If there's ever a break, like something goes wrong, because things break. I mean, hunters are freaking barbarians, dude. They don't take care of their stuff. They throw it. I mean, they do some dumb stuff. I want it shipped to my house. So anything that goes wrong, if you're a Tricer customer and something goes wrong, I want it shipped to me so I can actually see it and address that problem and try and fix it, right? Because sometimes it's not just the customer being dumb. It's just there's something that could be changed, right? So
yeah, and I tell you, just that staying connected with our customer, that's part of our business strategy. When we launched the company, it was direct to consumer because we really felt like that was the best way for us to stay closely connected with who's using our product. And man, I'm grateful we did that way when we first launched it, because it allows us to have that relationship with them, and it's made us better, no question, as business people and as manufacturers, no question, it's made us better.
How many, like Initial Ascent as a company, how many of you guys are there?
As far as employees, direct heads?
Yeah, employees, direct, yeah.
Yeah, so we have, Dennis and I, and then we have a full-time person out in the warehouse. And then we outsource different functions of the business, right? But full-time would be 3 of us.
All right, so yeah, something goes wrong, you're probably hearing about it.
Oh, you too. For sure. Yep.
See, I think there's a lot of guys listening to this podcast right now that love that.
Yeah.
That love that if something goes wrong, you guys are the ones probably talking to them.
That's right. Yeah. If there's a customer complaint or something wrong with shipping, or we got a lot of chats that go on our website, that's Dennis and I answering every single one of those.
Yeah. Every platform that we have, whether it be YouTube or Instagram or direct to the website, the chat on the website, all of those, Joe and I are answering directly, one of us.
Nice. Yeah. Are you guys, and you've made it a point to take care of your customers, I take it?
Absolutely.
Very much
Go
so.
above
It's
them.
not
You
for the
guys go. I
customers.
imagine you're going above and beyond for these guys.
Yeah, for sure. We
That's
aren't sitting
awesome,
here
man.
if it weren't for the customers, you know.
Yeah, and we got a lot of respect for. I mean, we're similar in fashion. We write a hand note with every single order that goes out, and it's just something that we've done from day one.
Yep.
And you're preaching to the choir there. I mean, we just totally respect that and feel like that is another way for us to stay close to our customers. We want to handwrite a note to them.
Yeah.
I like, and that's my thing too with being small, right? Like I'm a one man show and I've got people who work for us, but I mean, we're very small. But with a handwritten note and being the guys involved, when someone writes a bad review, now I have a team of people fighting for me that are the customers. Right? When you take care of your customer, like your customers are your best salesmen,
Yeah.
right? And if you sell them a pack and you're like, see you later, you know, like, but if you sell them a pack and they feel a part of Initial Ascent, right? Which is, I don't know what it is about hunting, but I feel like when you buy gear, like you become very loyal to that gear, right? Like,
I heard
um,
you. Yeah. There's
you know what I mean?
there's
And like now
companies.
they're a part of Initial Ascent and they can, if they're on a forum and some guys like, oh man, they're like, no way, man, I've been using that pack and they're great. Those guys, Joe and Dennis do this. And so when you take care of your customers, they really are your best salesman for you, and my favorite sales are, dude, I was out there hunting this weekend. I was the only one with the Tricer. All 4 guys came back and bought your tripod. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were packing out an elk and these guys were falling all over the place. They came back and they all 3 bought Initial Ascent backpacks. I mean, that's a sale right there. I
Yeah.
like that way more than like you guys see my catchy Memorial Day ads today.
Oh yeah.
Those are fun, but I
Yep.
like a lot more when the guy's using it, and they're like out there like, oh man, they got behind it and they put their hands on it and they're like, I gotta buy this. Like that's a good sale. Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
so
We get to
we
hear that
kind of
all
really finished. What's that?
we get to hear that all the time. That's really cool. And you mentioned the other. So you have the other 5 backpack manufacturers that
Mhm.
that are on the series, and there's some of those that they've done a very good job of doing just that. They've done a very good job of staying in contact with their customers, and their customers trust them, and they've created a tribe. There's a couple in particular that it's like a cult following, and
Mhm.
those true fans, if you will, those true customers, they're going to buy everything that those companies put out because they trust them, and they like what they stand for, and so we're trying to do exactly that, and here at Initial Set.
That's awesome. So on your frame, let's go back to the frame. We kind of got off of that. It is one size, 2 sizes. How many sizes frames do you guys make?
Yeah, so we have 2 different size frames. We've got one that's typically geared towards torso length greater than 17. And then we
So
have,
how tall am I for that? Over 6 foot or?
yeah, it just really depends on how long your torso is. But to give you an example,
Okay.
most people, I would say anybody that's typically over 5'6", 5'7", is going to typically go into that
Okay.
frame.
Okay.
And then we have a shorter frame, the Invictus frame, which has really been geared more towards the female hunter or the youth hunter. It's a
Okay.
smaller, it'll go down all the way to about a 14 torso, 14 and a half, roughly right.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll, so right, yeah, 14,
13.
yeah, 13. I knew that didn't sound right. So you've got a wide range of torso lengths that we can accommodate, and really feel like we've got the full gamut. I mean, you can take somebody that's as tall as, I think we've had somebody 6'8", 6'9", that we have
Well, Brady
fit.
Miller's what, 6'5", dude. He's running your stuff this year. I saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brady's running it. He's a tall dude.
Yeah, I was impressed. I was like, dude, he switched over. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's
It's
been
a neat
really
story.
cool.
Yeah.
It says
But
something.
yeah, to Joe's point, the torso length, we see variations. So like there's a 6 foot guy, a guy that's 6 foot tall. He could be a 19-inch torso, or he could be a 22-inch torso.
Yeah.
And so I'm always asking guys if they don't. We do have a video on how to measure your torso length properly, but it all depends on where you like to put your hip belt. If you put your hip belt in the standard place, then you can get a true torso length measurement, kind of how we talk about on our video. But if let's say you're a lady, for instance, and ladies' hips are shaped differently than a man's hips.
You guys use pronouns up in Idaho still?
Dude.
I'm in California. We got like 600 of them. I don't know if you have enough pack frames for everybody down here.
On it.
I think they just passed something here.
I saw that. That's awesome. Two
Yeah.
pronouns in school. Way to go, Idaho. Off topic. I'm sorry. Okay, you're a small woman, small lady using your small pack. Sorry.
That's right. And her hip structure's differently, so she's gonna probably wear that hip belt an inch, maybe even 2 inches higher than a guy would on her hip structure, and so that's going to shorten her torso length that much more. So you could have a lady that's 5'8", 5'9", and she's still going to be in our Invictus frame because she wears her hip belt a little bit higher. So yeah, I've got a buddy of mine he's 6'6", and he's got like a 19-inch torso. Dude is all legs, and
this hikes like crazy.
Oh gosh, when it's awful because he and I we used to hike 2-3 times a week together, and it was literally 2 of my steps for every one of his. But yet I have a 19-inch torso length at 5'7". So I've got a long torso for a guy that's 5'7" and not very long legs, and he's just the opposite. So that's an example right there of a lot of inches of height difference, but the torso length is relatively the same.
Now, your frames, you got 2 of them. Is it like a carbon fiber plate, or is it like a molded shaped carbon fiber in there? Like what's going on with that? You said you're using carbon fiber.
Yeah, so it's a composite blend. If we did straight carbon, and this was, we tested everything on it. If you do straight carbon, it would be kind of brittle. So we actually, I want to say, depending on which part of the frame, there's multiple layers within the frame. Some areas we reinforce it and it's thicker. I think in the thickest point, we've got upwards of 18 or 19 layers within the frame. And we use 6 different materials. And, one of the things Dennis talked about earlier, just the complexity of trying to figure things out early on, it's literally was like baking a cake without a recipe, trying to figure out the right mix. Because, with carbon fiber, it's an absolutely phenomenal product. You can,
but it's stiff.
It's stiff, and you can control how much stiffness you want by the direction of the fibers. So we can actually change the directions if we need to reinforce it. Vertically, you can do that with the way you run the fibers. If you need it horizontally, you can do that. So through all the testing, we have different layers going in different directions, and we use different types of carbon fiber in there that support what we're trying to accomplish in that portion of the frame. But to your point earlier, yes, there's a nice contour to it. It follows the human shape of the back. When we launched the female frame that we often call it, the smaller version frame, I want to say we tested that on well over 30 different women, just trying to get the shape down right, making sure that the shape fit the female anatomy, because it is different. It's a different curvature a little bit on the frame itself. So ours is it's a molding process that we use, and we use composite molds. But then we layer it up, and then we put a vacuum bag on it, hold a vacuum. We force resin throughout it, and then we put it in an enclave, and then it goes through a CNC machine and a sanding and final finish and prep. So each frame, and this, people don't understand how much technology goes into building a carbon fiber frame like this. We're going to spend upwards of about 4 hours to make one frame.
Really?
Yeah. Yep. So, there's different processes out there where you do molds and pressure molds, and you could do a faster process. But we've come back and we've looked at all of those. We've come back to it doesn't give the performance that we want, and we've opted to stay using the method that we've been doing now.
Yeah, and with that, we have, and you probably wonder, well, how in the world can you spit out, enough frames to support the demand? Well, we have multiple parts that are all going at the same time. And we've got different stages of that 4 hour is if you were to take one frame and you were to cut all the material out, then you lay all the material up, and then you pull the vacuum, you do the whole process. That's where the 4 hours, comes in. But they've figured out a way at our manufacturing facility on how to speed that process up with different efficiencies, numbers of people, numbers of parts, and that sort of thing.
All right. Well, I think you've convinced everyone that your frame is bitching. You put a lot of thought into it. Let's move to the hip belt. How many hip belts you got? What's special about your hip belt? Because I feel like a hip belt is a very important part of the pack.
Yes, I mean, we offer 3 different hip belt sizes: small, medium, and large. We just redesigned our belt. So our prior model, if you will, or version, we had 4 different hip belt sizes: small all the way up through XL. So small, medium, large, extra large. But one of the things that when we redesigned this belt for the product launch that we had this year at the expo, we actually changed the pull forward system on it. The other system, the way it was designed, the pull forward was great. It locked down great. But if you had a certain angle, you might get a little bit of slippage here and there. So we invest a lot of research back and forth, testing different buckles and so forth, and coming up with what we felt was the right process. And I'm stoked about the new belt. I absolutely love the new belt. We changed the foam a little bit as well, just the size of it ever so slightly. And I feel like it's actually more comfortable the way it wraps around than what we had prior. That was some of the feedback that we had gotten on the other belt was we used a thicker foam, so to speak, in the lumbar. And I think with our new system, it's still the same thickness, but the way we redesigned it, it feels like the feedback we're getting is it's a little bit more comfortable. So we do in our lumbar, it's a 2-stage lumbar, meaning we have a high density foam that's removable. You can adjust it depending on what thickness you want. But then we have a soft foam that's about a 2-inch foam. So when you put those together, you've got the pillow top on top of the support. So when you have lighter loads, it's comfortable, right? You don't need that support of just a heavy, robust pad. But when you do load that sucker up and you get 80 plus pounds on it, you need that high density foam back there to support you, and we have that. So it's a nice system because you can change those out if you choose to. But then you can also free float that lumbar up and down about 1.5 inches. So let's say you want it to ride a little bit higher, you can actually slide that up a little bit. If you want to ride it a little bit lower, back to Dennis's points earlier, depending on how you want to fine tune it. That's one of the joys of it is everybody's back's a little bit different. You're going to want it to carry in a spot maybe differently than I do. Dennis is going to want to carry it a little differently. So we allow you to kind of tailor that to fit your own needs.
That sounds really well thought out. Everything you guys are saying just sounds so well thought out, which is, I guess, when you're talking direct to the owners, you're going to get that. So I like that. So you're saying that the soft foam feels light, but I guess as you get a heavier load, it's going to start bringing that pack into you, and that's where that almost that leverage is going to bring that stiffer foam in there to support it.
That's exactly right, Drew. Yep.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
And when we first started testing our foam, just good for you to hear. I mean, again, we looked at every kind of foam out there, and we kind of landed on, for that high density foam, we ended up using a foam that comes out of the furniture industry. So you think about furniture, right? It's used for 20, 30 years, people sitting on it, laying on it, whatever. That foam tends to hold its shape. I mean, it's a really high density foam that doesn't break down. And that was one of the things when we designed our pack system is we want this to be a one and done, right? You're going to invest this kind of money in it. This should last you a lifetime, and that foam's not going to break down on you.
Mm-hmm. We'll get on to the bags, off topic, but you're talking about foam. Idea I've had lately, I do a lot of archery shooting, and the archery blocks, they start getting shot out. Man, if you guys know about foam, if you guys can make me like some 18 by 18, like Initial Ascent foam replacements for archery blocks, you guys would kill it. Cause those blocks are like $180.
Yeah.
And it's like a high density, like 1-inch foam you can just freaking hot glue to that thing on both sides. It would be so nice, wouldn't it?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mountain Dew just fit perfect too, right in that little circle.
Yeah, dude, put that guy on there and just Initial Ascent archery Dude, I'd pay you $40 for a set of those things all day long. And that's buy another
Yeah,
block.
I may or may not have hot glued some on some targets.
Did you? I've been taking Sikaflex, like silicone, and filling the holes up,
Yeah.
because you just like problem is, especially you start shooting like I'm shooting like 4 mils now. If it's blown out, like you're just penetrating, then your fletchings are hitting the target, and you're just screwing arrows, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's off
Those
topic.
arrows aren't cheap, are they?
No, they are not cheap, man. I'm going titanium inserts now too, so
Mm-hmm.
no, they are no. I'm like they have like all these steel deer targets and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I really don't want to win that prize that bad. It's like a $30 arrow now. I'm good.
Yeah.
That's
I'm good.
right.
I'm good on not shooting the steel deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys we talked about this before the podcast, 5 bags. The one thing I really appreciate about like some of these backpack companies is when they're like you guys have In-N-Out Burger up there. I talked about this on the last podcast. In-N-Out Burger up there in Idaho.
Yeah, we
They
made
make
headlines here not too long ago about that.
they make burgers really well, right? They don't got chicken sandwich. They don't got all this other stuff. Burritos. They sell a burger, and you guys make essentially similar to some of the other guys that were on here. 4-packs, right? I mean, you have a fifth one. You have a day pack as well. Tell me about the bags. And the bags are all, if correct me if I'm wrong, very similar, just bigger, right? Like they like if I were to go from Initial Ascent, I don't know, and we're using cubic inches on this too. Don't use liters because it'll throw everybody off. So if I went from Initial Ascent, I'm just going to throw a number out there: a 3,000 cubic inch pack to a 7,000 cubic inch pack. I'm not going to have much of a learning curve, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they're all going to operate fairly similarly. The only thing, like our 3K, it doesn't have a roll top on it.
Okay.
So
Let's break them down. Let's break down your packs.
okay,
What,
yeah.
what do we got?
So we start with kind of the intro model, if you will, and it is a modular system. So all of our bags fit on one frame and suspension. So we start with the day pack, and essentially that is your minimalist design, early season hunting out of a base camp day pack, or hunting out of your spike camp. We like to do that a lot. So that's just got our pannier load carrier, which is our meat shelf that has a large 450 cubic inch pocket on it, and your lid. So you've got 525 cubic inch lid with the pannier load carrier. You can carry everything you need for the day, especially in early season, and you roll. A lot of guys like to do that. They're packing meat immediately. They don't have to go back to the truck and get their pack frame and all that. The next rung on the ladder is the 3K, and that's going to be just the bag itself. Now, all of these bags integrate with the same lid. So you've still got that 525 cubic inch lid on it, and then you've got your horseshoe zipper on the 3K. It's about 2,600 cubic inches. Then you add the lid, and so then you're over 3,000. You've got your 5K, which is the next size up, and basically you've got the 5K, which is just a touch bigger than the 3K. Same features, same spotter pocket, same short tripod / rifle pocket on the other side, same stretch pocket on the front.
Also, different pockets on different sides.
Yeah, we
like
actually
that.
did that.
I like that.
And for Tricer tripods, it works great because you can access them really easily. You don't
I actually heard they're the only tripod that will strap to your backpack.
That's exactly right. We've
I don't know if you
tried
confirm or
to strap
deny that.
other ones on there,
They just
and
fall
they
off.
just will not work.
They
Matter of
fall
fact, they
off.
bounce off. It's like turning a magnet,
Like
to the
a water on a duck.
That's right. So good job.
That's cool to hear that, because not many people are doing that. Most time it's like mirror image, right? And that's really neat to hear that you have a pocket on one side. And I'm seeing it now. So you get the long pocket on one side and then a shorter one there. That's really cool.
Yeah, and and that was basically a personal thing for us. I didn't like the tripod going down in a big long pocket. It just, I guess I'm a little bit too impatient. I love sticking a couple of legs of my tripod in a small little pocket and strapping it against the bag with the compression strap that goes to the frame. It's just really quick and fast. And then the other side, you can throw your spotter in there. So,
But
talk 8K.
yeah. Well, I think on all the packs, one of the things too that's nice about that smaller pocket, it's multifunctional, right? You can also run your rifle on there because we got a lot of feedback from guys. They want to run the rifle on the side back there, which we didn't talk about it on the frame, but we actually have notches up on our frame that are designed to carry your rifle sling. Well, that takes all the weight off it. So you got multiple places where you can actually run the rifle, but one of them's on that same pocket that we run for the for your tripod. Hey, on the 8K, it's pretty much the exact same design as the 5K, just bigger, right? And all of them attach basically the same way. The 5K has 4 attachment points to the frame, whereas the 8K has 6. It's a bigger bag, so we have 6 attachment points on it. But it's all modular. Any one of those bags, you can take it off, put the other bag on. And one of the things that we really strived to do was make it simple, right? You've got a couple buckles, pull the bag off the top, undo it from the hip belt, and you're done. I mean, you can literally pull this bag apart, and what sits behind the bag is how we like to run it, is that meat shelf that Dennis talked about, the pannier, right, that makes up our day pack. So that meat shelf always sits there. So a lot of times when we're running the 8K or the 5K, when we pack in, we set up camp, we may take that big bag off, and then we have the day pack right there. You got the lid of the meat shelf, and then we're 4 pounds.
Now, is that day pack built into all of the pack frames?
The pannier is an accessory. I would say about 70-80% of all of our pack sales, somebody gets the pannier with it.
Okay.
But it is an accessory. So we just run it. We fold it up, sits behind the bag.
Behind the bag. Okay.
Yeah, the 3, the 5, or the 8. The 8K goes up to 8,200 cubic inches. So it's an expedition style pack. So if you got Lampers or Brady or Brian, those guys, that's all they're ever running is the 8K. Any one of the bags, whether it's the 3, the 5, or the 8, one of the other things that we really strive to do with them is, hey, if I just want to run the bag, no matter what, I just want to go one bag for all things. I want to be able to consolidate it down, right? I want to be able to pull it down really tight to the pack. And that's one of the things with this design that you'd be able to see is you can get this thing when it's empty, you can suck it down really tight. So there's not anything flopping around on you, whether that's the 8K or the 5 or the 3.
That's cool. Yeah, I appreciate that you guys are making an 8K. I feel like some companies are going away from the bigger ones, but like as somebody who has to carry around like multiple tripods and a BTX and cameras now,
Right.
like, it's nice having a big bag. And a lot of guys are like, and I get the push to want to be minimalistic, but sometimes you need more. And like you mentioned those guys like Brady and those guys, they're carrying more than the average dude, right? They're carrying prototypes and they're carrying cameras, and Brady's carrying a 15-pound rifle. They got a lot of stuff there. Let's talk about the pack themselves. I love these hits simple. So like my motto for Tricer is fast, light, simple.
Mm-hmm.
I want things that are fast, light, and simple, right? Easy to use. I don't want to be thinking too much. Do you guys run a bunch of pockets on your packs?
No, we really don't. I mean, if you open the main bag up, you've got the beaver tail, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's there. We have a single pocket up on top there inside on the beaver tail. But other than that, it's pretty much a straight tube inside, which we really organize. We feel it's a better system through our organization sacks, we call them pack sacks, where different sizes, and we'll leverage those to organize within the bag. And then, over time, I think you just get better at packing your pack, right? I know exactly where my sleeping pad's going to go. I know exactly where my sleeping bag's going to go. I know how I'm going to carry the food. All of those things. If you got a lot of pockets in there, then you're probably packing your fears, right? You're just taking too much stuff a lot of times. So we felt like that was, and it adds weight to it. So we opted not to do that. We have some organization on the outside, as Dennis kind of shared, right? We've got the tripod pocket. We got the spotter pocket. We've got a big pocket on the outside for the essentials. I mean, rain gear, puppies, stuff like that, right? That sits on the outside in that big stretch pocket. And then we have a stretch pocket on the side for, say, Nalgene or something like that if you want to run that. But outside of that, that's kind of our pocket system. We wanted to have enough where you had all the functionality of the stuff that you need, but you didn't have a lot of waste of extra weight just because you want some extra storage. We figured there's better ways to do it.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I
redneck
like that.
that is we have enough pockets for organization, but not too many where you lose stuff.
Where you're using them just because you have them. I don't like those bags where you have to have pockets. I feel like you got to put something in there. Then a couple months goes by and you open it up and there's like an orange it's like grown a third leg. You ever do that? You open it up and you're like, oh my gosh, this cheese did not hold up well
Yeah,
for 3 months.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my kids.
Oh man, you ever open up? You guys probably don't dove hunt up there, but we have dove bags down here. Sometimes you forget a dove in your bag. Oh, that's gross.
I grew up in the South, and that was a common occurrence every September.
Yeah, you forget a dove.
Yeah,
I like that. You're speaking my language when it comes to packs on like being more. So it's more of a modular system. What kind of accessories are you offering for these packs?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much across the board what you would expect. I mean, we have 2 different size hip belt pouches, and we do a reverse molly system so that it actually locks onto the hip belt with a hook and loop system. It becomes a single hand operation. So we have it 2 different sizes, and then we've got a water bottle holder that actually sits in the dead spot of your hip belt. So where you've got your foam on the side with the wing, and then you've got a dead spot between that and the lumbar. It actually attaches right
Yeah,
there. So
that's
you
really
never,
cool. It's not
uh,
flopping around hitting you.
it's not flopping around hitting you,
I'm
right?
yet to find one that I like. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, that we've gotten, I don't know, it's a really good insulated water bottle holder that we've got. But then, we've got bow holders, rifle holders that are really, I would say, a minimalist type approach because you don't need a lot. You just need something that you can depend on that doesn't weigh a lot of weight. So we've got that. And then all of the other stuff that you would think about as far as dry bags, pack sacks. We've got a safety flap, which is an orange, piece of material, call it, that adheres to the back of the bag. If you need that hunter's orange, we've got some accessory bags that can attach on top of your pack if you want a little bit more storage. So it's a full run of accessories that we carry.
What about water storage? Do you guys have a separate compartment for your bladders? How's that look? Do you guys do bladders? Let's talk about that.
yeah, that's a great question. So when we first started, we were trying to do something that was different that hadn't been done, obviously in the hunting world as far as backpacks go, and that was one of the things that we wanted to do. We were both bladder users, and so we ended up integrating a bladder pocket in the underneath the main pocket of the lid. So there's hook and loop right there as far as the opening goes, and you slide your 2 liter bladder, and there's some guys have used actually a 3 liter low profile bladder. And then you've got your tube port that comes out the backside. And so that's kind of how we've done it. Now we've heard, from some customers that they don't like to do that. And so, there's other places on our bag that you can do that. The one thing we didn't want to do is we didn't want to put the bladder inside the bag itself.
Yeah. So is
We've
that
all
pocket
been there.
waterproof?
What's that?
Is that pocket waterproof then? Is that why you're saying that?
It's not waterproof. It's highly water resistant. But
Okay.
the thing is, if you've got your roll top and let's say you get a leak up there in your lid, first of all, there's not going to be anything really impacting that that could pop it or cause a leak. But if it does leak, it's still going to leak on the outside of your bag, not down where
Okay.
down
Not into
sleep.
your gear. That's what I'm saying. So it protects your sleeping bag and all that stuff isn't going to get wet.
Right.
Yeah,
You'll be okay.
all the gear isn't going to get wet. So, and another thing it does is it keeps that water, which is some of the heaviest. That's the heaviest thing that we carry a lot of the times, besides our food. It keeps it up high, and so with guys that like to carry that. Now, if you want to carry something that, let's say, a 3 liter or a 4 liter reservoir of water, we've got other places that you can do that. We've got different pockets in the bag that guys carry it there. I've often put it in the pocket of my pannier because it's always on my frame. I'll put it there. and it carries really well right up next to the frame like that.
Okay, I even run them in. I don't know how long your spotting scope pocket is. I've even thrown them in there as well. I run a bigger for being from the South. We don't have I like Nalgene's, but down here I run a bladder a lot because I have whatever water I have is all I'm going to have. I'm not going to find water, and if you do find it, you're not going to want to drink what you found down here in San Diego. In Arizona, you're probably drinking out of a stock pond, so you're running bladder. So I can run it. I imagine you could put it in that side pouch as well if you wanted to.
You can.
Sure.
Man, you guys making some cool packs. You guys kind of got like the expert pack guy now. By the time I got to the 6th podcast, I've heard everything there is, so I'm able to ask some really questions that make me sound a lot smarter than I am when it comes to packs, we like to end this thing with a hunting story because everyone on here is a hunter, right? So you guys got a good hunting story for me? Doesn't have to be your biggest animal. It can just be like your first buck. I don't care. You and Grandpa. I don't any kind of hunting story. You got one?
You got a really good one, man.
Yeah. So I've got one of Joe and I together.
Okay.
And I happened to draw a pretty good elk tag here in the state of Idaho here a few years ago. And, like you, I was new to archery elk hunting. I had hunted whitetail deer in the South growing up with my bow. I'd killed other things with my bow, whether it be down in Texas, hogs in the South, as well as whitetail deer, but I'd never killed a bull with my bow. And so Joe and I drew this tag, and Joe agreed to go with me. And Joe, he called a bull actually called several bulls right into my lap. Let's just be honest there. I missed the first bull that I drew back on, and it was a freaking chip shot. I still don't know how that happened, but it happened.
They're the size of a school bus, but they make you like a 3-year-old girl.
I'm telling you, man. I blame it on not my tripod. I almost said no. I blame it on my stabilizer. I had a quivalizer at the time, and it happened so fast that I didn't have time to put my quivalizer down in the stabilizer position, and so when I shot, it wasn't me. but my bow kicked up. That's all I could figure, and I shot right over his back. That's all I could figure. But no,
my story. I'm sticking to it.
That's right. That's exactly right. I missed that first one, and then the next day, Joe called another one right into my lap, and it was one of those deals where, I was crouched down in front of a tree. Joe was about 70 yards behind me. He and his son Brody were back there, and we had this bull coming on a string, and I'm planning on him, going kind of to the side because Joe was kind of to the side. He was back there, and I'm planning on this bull coming up and going past a couple of trees. And when he goes past those trees, you know what happens? His head goes behind the tree. I'm drawing back, and we're stopping him, and it's solid.
Just like YouTube. Just like
YouTube. Well,
that's it. I saw that video.
That sucker, he comes to 8 yards directly at me. And by this time, the sun is hitting me right in the face. So I'm shining like a diamond. You've heard that song. And he stops and looks right at me. I'm being still as a statue. And all of a sudden you see those muscles, you see him just start to tense up, and he's just about to blow.
It's
the
over.
Wind's perfect, but he's just about to blow. He doesn't like it. Right. So he wheels. As soon as he wheels, I draw back real quick, and both Joe and I hit a cow call at the same time. And that sucker stops broadside about 25 yards. I drill him. He goes about 50 yards and dies. And Joe and I, we took a few minutes, didn't we?
We did.
We took a few minutes because we knew he was dead, and together we had just killed that bull. And this was back
2017.
And this was before we launched the pack. So we still had prototypes on our backs. And
this was like the initial ascent of Initial Ascent.
It really
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. And, Joe and I, we were up at a place where you didn't want to make a second trip down, and we had a storm coming in that next day to where it was going to be really treacherous to get down with a whole bunch of weight and everything. So we called a bunch of dudes up, and man, it's like they traveled from near and far. And I don't know if we had like 9 or 10 dudes that showed up.
We had a bunch of kids. Well, you got to tell the whole story, man, because there's a whole nother story that goes along with this.
Right. Oh my gosh, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, well, I want to finish this story because it was unbelievable. So we had, I want to say there was 9 kids that came up, teenagers that came up, 14 to 16 years old. And they helped us pack everything to a point, and they down. And then I remember taking the kids back to the truck. So it was planes, trains, and automobiles. We hiked out probably 4 or 5 miles, got to our four-wheelers, and then we had to ride the four-wheelers 8 miles back to where the vehicles were. So while we're riding back there, and this is in, just picture kind of lava fields, fairly flat once we got down, but just kind of some rolling areas. And we're cruising back there, not an area where you would expect to see a bear. So we're cruising back, and I've got all of these young boys with me. And Dennis and some of the guys, the adults, were still kind of working. I think you guys were still bringing another load down. So we're getting over there, and I see I see the trucks, my truck, Dennis's truck, and the boys are in front of me, and I see them all just stop. And we're probably now 100 to 150 yards from the vehicles. We've got all this meat. And this one kid, he's a great big old kid. He comes running up to me. He's like, Mr. Ellison, there's a bear. And I'm like, great. There's a load of meat here we got to unload. And he's like, I got a bear tag. And I looked at him, and I didn't know this kid at all. And I said, well, I need to hear from your dad. And he's like, what? I go, I need to hear from your dad. You can shoot this, because I didn't know the kid, nothing. He runs up, gets on the phone with his dad. The bear's still mulling around in this lava field area. And I'm thinking that bear's going to be gone. And next thing I know, he's handing the phone to me. So I'm talking to his dad, and his dad's like, yep, he shot several bears. Go for it. So I'm like, all right. So then I'm like, well, there's not a gun. My oldest boy's like, I've got a 270 in the truck. So long story short, they grabbed that 270. They ended up shooting that bear. He killed that bear. And I've got the most epic picture of these kids hauling that bear out, all of them, all the way around it, walking up this hill, carrying that bill.
Looked like a bunch of pallbearers.
Oh my gosh, it was such an awesome deal. So not only did Dennis kill one heck of a bull, but those kids killed one heck of a bear. It was pretty awesome.
That is awesome, man. What a good podcast, you guys. What a good way to wrap this whole series up. Where can we find you guys?
So you can go to our website, initialascent.com, or we're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. All of those. You can check us out there. You can call us, come by and see us.
Come by the shop.
Yep.
Yeah.
We're right here in Caldwell, Idaho.
Awesome, man. Well, let's do it again. Let's get back on here and tell some more hunting stories, huh?
That'd be awesome, Drew.
Man.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
Thanks, Drew.